All right, we are live. The second day of the new year. 1/2/2020. Excited to be back for some live stream action. Wanted to check in for a late night stream, looks like. Got tied up with a couple things, but we're here. And as you guys can tell from the very subject matter, I want to just begin talking about something that will become a pretty relevant primary conversation that we're going to be having moving forward. And I think this year especially, we're going to hear more about the push for, as the mainstream media will call them, cryptocurrency adoption, but more so state-owned, centrally controlled digital currencies are more than likely what they're going to become. But in actuality, as you guys can see here, they're just new surveillance coins in a sense. And so just a rebranding and reshuffling of the deck that is designed to position them, when I mean them, central banks and governments, in a greater position of power, while also removing the little bit of freedoms that we do have in having something, the very last line of defense, in the form of physical paper cash. And so here I got $1 bill. And as we move into this new decade, this piece of paper here will not be allowed, recommended, or encouraged by mainstream media, because they're going to say things like, whoever use paper, they're obviously doing one of three things. They're evading taxing, they're supporting terrorism, or I forgot what the third one is. But that being the case, we're going to talk about this evening, and I want to get your thoughts on a variety of subject matter and talk to you about some things that were presented to me today with the Chinese cryptocurrency, quote unquote, that's being rolled out. And it's looking like by this year, officially, it's going to be in everybody's hands over there. And I'm going to show you how they're going to do that and what the intentions of that is. But welcome to RTD Live Talk. My name is Mike, the host of Detroit's #1 late night YouTube talk show. Excited to be back for some more live streaming. So with that being the case, let me acknowledge a couple people that's taking time to join us here. We got Spirit King here. We got says war with Iran just starting. Happy New Year from Trump to everybody. Nothing new, to say the least, Spirit. It was inevitable, and I'm not sure if they dropped some bombs already, but let me go ahead and Google that, because I'm sure there's some activity over there. We're going to have more than enough stuff to talk about when it comes to Middle East. We got Tony Blaylock says, hello, family. We got Matt. We got James. We got, what else? We got Spirit King says, Trump's tweet in 2012, I always said, at Barack Obama will attack Iran in some form prior to the election. Yeah, it looks like it's going to be on his watch. So, not surprised at all. I think it's part of the equation. Mike, I want to see some sports highlights from back in the day. Post some links. I might just have to do that. All right. So with that being the case, I appreciate somebody emailed me earlier. Somebody in the community emailed me a video about this new cryptocurrency. Nothing new, relatively speaking, but just I'm more so curious and interested in getting your take on how it's being branded, because ultimately I believe, and I strongly believe, that it's the narrative that central banks and governments would rather use, as opposed to basically being upfront and honest as to what it's really about, which is basically it's the cashless society push in a different form. And so without outright abandoning or outlawing or shining light on their desire to remove physical paper out of our hands, they're trying to spin off and use something that has reached somewhat of an adoption type push, which happens to be the cryptocurrency, that word itself. And they're using that, and they're jumping on the bandwagon with that type of lingo to spin off what's already overwhelmingly digital in the first place, which is their digital yuan. So it's there's a couple acronyms or whatever they have out there. Digital electronic currencies or whatever is what it's labeled. But ultimately, it's the push to remove cash physically from the citizens' hands. And in this video that I'm going to probably play a little bit of it gives some details as to why that is. And it has a lot to do with the fact that their economy is crumbling. The shadow banking sector is having issues. They're overly indebted in digital yuan terms. So they're trying to spin off the new creation of something that's not new, but just rebranded. And the way they're doing it, I think, is what makes it most interesting, is that they're allowing commercial banks to issue their own or issue the digital wallets directly. So the commercial banks, the really big centrally controlled PBOC controlled banks will be issuing digital wallets. So everything is going to be designed to be done and operated through the phones, and central banks will control it primarily through commercial banks. So I think it's a very good indicator of what they're going to try to roll out here eventually in some form of fashion. So central bank digital currencies, curve, good thought there. So it says U.S. killed top Iranian general in Baghdad. I heard about that. Matt Forrest says, great podcast of Giftpreneur. Appreciate that, my friend. Got a lot more coming, because outside of the obvious problems, very seldomly are there people out there willing to actually reach out to people individually and just talk about personal solutions in the form of how can you personally contribute something of value to the world. So I'm going to talk about that. And so B Trio says, why wouldn't China just use Bitcoin? That is a great question, and the best answer is because Bitcoin itself gives their citizens options that they don't want the citizenry to have. And so the very title of this subject matter tonight is China issues new surveillance coin. And so everything that particular government does there happens to do with the centralization of all control, politically, economically, socially, you name it. And that's all tied into that social credit score there, where if you get out of line, your money will be impacted, as well as your overall credit score. So that's the goal of that particular government there. But I think it's going to be the modeling. It's going to be the model for the global dominance or the global government that they're wanting to implement at the end of the day. And so I think China's leading the way with that. And because they got billions of people there, they're going to get away with it, or hundreds of millions, or close to over a billion for sure. So if that being the case, they will not be using Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is being touted in the mainstream as well as alternative media as pseudo-anonymous. It has a lot of properties that give people the illusion of freedom. So I don't think they want people in China to think that they can willingly go behind the government there, because the three main things you're going to hear more about this decade is they want to control tax evasion, anti-money laundering, and terrorist activity. So those three activities, every government will scream from the mountains as to why they have to do what they're doing. And ultimately, and so I'm going to actually get to the video, but I thought I would bring to your guys' attention. BC Matrix said, what is that? Some lemonade? What is that? China just wants to totally control their people with their digital yuan 100%. And so to give you an idea as to who's in charge, there's an individual that has been placed at the head of the whole, and I don't even like using the word cryptocurrency, because what's going on in China is not cryptocurrency in the form that Bitcoin and other decentralized coins in nature have or offer. But a gentleman by the name of Mu Chang-chung is heading up the research for the digital currency for the PBOC. So this is an older article. It says China appoints new digital currency head as race with Facebook's Libra heats up. So this was back in September. And so this article is interesting here because everything I'm hearing out of the mainstream news about this Chinese push for implementing their own digital currency, it's all in competition to Facebook. And what's even more alarming is that, to my knowledge, Facebook isn't really even allowed inside of China. So Facebook Libra, that project, has no real threat directly on the Chinese economy or Chinese citizenry, because Facebook is not allowed to be used in that country because they have all their other spinoffs of WeChat and a couple other social media platforms, Baidu and things like that, and UBTube or something like that. So I actually have Rethinking the Dollar on a couple of those channels there, and I don't really post much to it. But so with that being the case, Facebook Libra is being touted out, is being sprung out as the reason why China's ramping it up. But once again, as I mentioned, Facebook is not really directly in China. So that's what we're being told and shown on the surface. But what I believe this is about is Facebook, in conjunction with the governments around the world, were probably giving the thumbs up and told to get this party rolling into the 2020s. By the 2020s, we need to have this conversation topic in the Congress and in the Senate. We got to have all the politicians talking about this so that we can continue to promote and put the bug in people's ears that digital currencies, centrally controlled currency, whatever it's going to be, is going to be something in our future. So I think Facebook was given a thumbs up, and that's why they're getting some type of backlash. But at the end of the day, I think they're going to ultimately come out with the Facebook Libra project sometime this year. I'm not sure where it stands as of now, but I think they're going to be rolling out the Facebook Libra as a social media style token type coin. And so what governments so-called fear is that Facebook Libra will have too much control and it'll thwart their control on their centralized currencies. But it's one of the things where we're being told one thing, but yet behind the scenes, it's a whole different narrative. And I believe all this stuff we're hearing about currencies and digital currencies is preparation for what's coming starting this year. Like 2020 is a year where we're going to hear more governments talking digital currencies, using the words cryptocurrencies, touting out words like blockchain, knowing dang well all that decentralized stuff that was introduced a decade ago with Bitcoin is nothing similar to what they're going to try to roll out. So people won't really know the difference. They're going to just take it as a digital currency. And the best example of what's going on in China, where the commercial banks are issuing digital wallets. So, but this gentleman here, Mu Chang-chung, is going to be the driving force behind the PBOC's project. And the primary objective for issuing the digital currency in China, it has nothing to do with providing options. It's all about being able to remove the paper yuan in time before their economy implodes. Because right now, the people still have confidence, and the paper yuan is still in circulation. Not as much, but it still is. And the goal is to have well in advance position the people solely in the digital economy to where when they issue currency controls and their economy goes belly up, they'll be able to have more say so because everything will be digital. And that's, I believe, within the next 12 to 24 months, especially, are they going to try to hold this thing together. So once again, I'm ranting too much. Let me check in with the chat, see if there's any thoughts worthy of mentioning. And as always, let me know in the chat where you're watching from. Any new viewers will love to acknowledge your presence. And there's a number, 313-462-0027. Give me a call, and we can make that work. And so let me check in here. It says, Curb says, IMF today released a load of books, elibrary.imf.org. Also a lot about cashless. Ooh, that's going to be interesting. And so heading into 2020, I think we're going to hear more negative speech from economists and things of that nature talking about the need and the threat of currency and cash and things like that. So don't be surprised when you get your very first representative from some central bank, or not some central bank, but from some state. More than likely, he's going to be probably on a Democratic side, best case scenario, talking about the threat of cash and how we need to step in and do this and do that. So be on the lookout for stuff like that because it's coming this year. Why wouldn't it come this year? I'm more than confident that it will. Let me see. I'm looking up some IMF stuff here. Let me see if there's anything new in the news. IMF, let me see, IMF cashless. IMF cashless, and see what comes up. I'm always interested to find out any new reports. Boost cash in Japan, quantum leap cashing in, how to make negative rates. So yeah, nothing new. The financial system for the future, who benefits from it. So here's an interesting article here from Cointelegraph, and I think this is interesting. It says the financial system of the future, who benefits from it, and it says CBDCs, so central bank digital currencies. And so they're saying that definitely the central bank currencies are going to win. And once again, it's being mentioned due to Facebook Libra stepping into the equation and promoting and taunting promoting what they're going to do. So bank account and penetration. So this is something interesting for those that are interested. I'll put it in the chat for those to read into it if you're interested. And as always, if you guys come across articles or whatnot, feel free to let me know. I would love to check into them and go from there. So what do we got here? It says, if a country doesn't have electricity, is not much of a country. Sergeant Rock 1. So something that's interesting based upon this video here. And so let me actually find the video. So here's the original video here that gives a 4-minute video of the breakdown of this new cryptocurrency. And so as you guys can see here, it says could track money flows. And so the analyst for this particular news report did a good job of highlighting some of the concerns. And one of the concerns was that one of the issues that a lot of people have with digital currencies in general is that if there's no electricity, if there's no internet, then there's no transactions. But yet what's mentioned here in this video here is that a part of the wallet, the patented version for the apps that they're going to be using in China, is that if there's no internet, you still can have transactions. You still can make transactions. And I'm assuming it's going to be some offline technology, but yet there are patents right now in China that they're saying is a part of their wallet structure that will be used. So here it says here that, talks about 90% of all the digital transactions happen to be through third parties. So the Alipays, the WeChat, and things like that. These type of features here where you just have a QR code minus the internet connection, and according to these wallets here, you still can have transactions. So as long as you got power on your phone, you still can make transactions. So some of the other things that caught my attention about this was how the cons of having this sole technology is that if there's no paper, it puts the government in an even more favorable position to track and to surveil their citizenry. And so that's one of the things that if you comment on it, talk about it, or even mention that, then you're going to be looked at as somebody who has something to hide. So pretty soon we're going to get to the point where heading into this new technologically advanced world we're in, where technology is going to be recommended and encouraged by governments and all the tech companies. Pretty soon it's going to get to the point where if you don't adapt to and use these technologies for your everyday use, they're going to be like, whoa, he's a tinfoil hat person. He's a conspiracy theorist. He must be doing drugs or narcotics or something like that. That's why he doesn't want to use it. So pretty soon, just through mere peer pressure, they're going to be shining light on people who just would prefer to have something physical in their hands. And so you're going to definitely fall into that category if you don't play along with these rules here. And it's going to be hard to get around it because just like right now, when it comes to the smart technology, every house for the most part in this country has a smart meter on it. And it's one of them things where you may not necessarily want to have a smart meter on. And even if you opt out, are you really opted out? That's the question, because I've had some issues on my end where I pay for the service to make sure the smart meter is off, but come to find out it was still on. And so I was extremely mad. And so as of soon, I'm supposed to be having somebody come out and put something on my house. It's not, I don't want nothing smart on the house if I can have it. So we'll see how that goes. So, but it's one of the things where you don't have much of a choice because there's no competition when it comes to your energy companies primarily, to where it's good to say that you're forced to have a smart meter or something of that nature, where it's going to be the same thing here when it comes to currency. Because in China, according to this video here, here's a portion here about the no internet. So I'll play this back and give it some volume.
As crypto will be that payments can be conducted offline. So in case of a natural disaster, when the network is down, or if you're on board a plane, you can still pay as long as your phone has power. And authorities promise a major difference will be greater anonymity, but it won't be absolute anonymity.
So here's a patent here saying that the currency will be, you have a little bit of anonymity, but not a lot. So it's one of the things where it'll be just enough to where you feel comfortable doing transactions and not worrying about the government collecting your data. But it's not completely anonymous to where they don't know what you're doing. So what is it? Like either you do know or you don't know. So this another issue about data. So from your financial transactions, they'll be collecting data based upon your activity, and they'll probably eventually end up marketing to you and all those things that come with the problem of having a digital world that we're involved in. So, yeah, definitely I would encourage you guys to take a look at this video here if you have not watched it yet, because it's interesting. It just gives you a heads up as to where we're heading. And so here's a question I want to put out there this evening. You see what's developing. You know where we're heading. Pretty soon, we're going to hear more talk about the Fed coin and whatever else, whether it's through the Treasury directly, which it probably won't be, because I don't think Steve Mnuchin is willing to take on the responsibility of issuing a currency apart from there being an immediate need to, whether it be pre-crisis or post-crisis. I would imagine similar fashion that was going on in China, they're trying to roll this out pre-crisis within China so that people will feel confident, have confidence in the monetary system, because they can just look on their phones and see that there's something there. And they've already been weaned off the idea that if there's a panic, you got to run down to the bank and get something physical, because you won't be able to run down and get physical cash when they have a banking crisis. So, so face a greater anonymity. So yeah, that's just what they're touting and preaching. But it's one of the things where if you don't hold it, you don't own it. And what we're being forced to accept is the fact that everything's going to be funneled down to one pure digital-based blockchain style, but just really the removal of physical cash, and you're going to be left with digits. So the question I want to put out there for you guys is, when that time comes, because it's not a matter of if, it's more so when. And I believe this decade, especially within the next under the next 5 years, there will be mainstream talk on what the U.S. will be rolling out as far as some type of digital legal tender that will probably go alongside with the paper notes in the meantime. But as we're already overwhelmingly predominantly in a cashless society by choice, I think that makes it smoother for them to roll out something with some time in between, as opposed to just all of a sudden passing a law saying all pieces of paper are illegal, you can't use them no more. So what are your thoughts on this? When there's an officially announced that there's a centrally controlled digital something or another, and I can probably imagine it probably being a stable coin. They're probably going to give legal tender status for goods and services primarily. They're going to allow people to utilize stable coins pretty soon. So I imagine the first line of offense for them would be to allow stable coins to be used for goods and services outright. And of course, they won't ever use it for taxation just yet, but for goods and services. So with that being the case, what are your thoughts on that? Will you also be adopting that new method of making payments, given the fact that in order for you to be able to make payments, that means that they're going to pass some type of law or something where you also can be compensated in that same stable coin. So I'm curious by thumbs up. What side are you on? If your employer gives you the option of receiving some pay in stable coin, and of course there's going to be an incentive, saying like if you sign up for direct deposit via the stable coin, we'll waive some fees, we'll match it or something like that. What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious to find out in the chat. Let me know what you think. So Bitrio says you won't have a choice, Mike. Yeah, very true. And so initially, the first couple of months, and like always, any type of new rollout of something of this nature where it's digital based, solely based upon technology, there's going to be a greater window of adoption, because you're going to have a lot of the older population that has no interest whatsoever in cryptocurrency, nevertheless receiving their checks via Social Security checks via a stable coin deposited on their phone. And so there's going to be a longer window of adoption. And so within that time frame, it won't be mandatory for the first 6 to 8 months. Then after that, you'll be automatically rolled into it. And so do you think you're going to automatically warm up to it, or will you look for ways of opting out to where you can keep the old methodology, or what? So I'm curious to find out what you're saying. Buy more a cup of coffee. So Rolf says, here's your 1,000 blank coin pay for the month. Enjoy. 1,000 blank coins buy you a cup of coffee. Enjoy. Says, tell the people in Africa about Bitcoin. Okay, I can't say that. I will definitely get demonetized on the video on that point. Tony, good point. So when it comes to, here's one of the things that a lot of people may not necessarily be aware of or be in support of, but in nations like right now, as we speak, that's having financial and economic crises at this current point, alternative means of passing and storing and transferring wealth is working quite well. And so I was actually reading an article this morning about how well the cryptocurrency Dash is doing in Venezuela. It's doing so well that franchisee owners of Burger King, there's about 40 locations in Venezuela. All 40 locations have opted to receive pay utilizing the Dash coin. And so I've seen several videos of how Dash is probably the most utilized coin outside of Bitcoin for wealth storage. People are getting out of the Venezuelan bolivar as fast as they can, and they're getting Bitcoin. They're sitting on it as if it's digital gold, but then they're using Dash and probably even Litecoin in actual transactions. So that's a great use case for what people use when things hit the fan, because they don't have access to metals the way that we do. And on top of that, like, that's a good example of how would you actually use your weight down there for a burger or for some fries or something like that. So, and then in Africa, Zimbabwe, for example, no doubt that, the Bitcoin and things of that nature is a way of providing liquidity right away. Like, no doubt it's working there because they have no alternative. Dollars are scarce there, and the Zimbabwean dollar is being hyperinflated as we speak. So there are use cases for it, but yet we're in a different boat because we have the reserve currency. So, like, it's one of the things where even if stuff hit the fan here, I think it'll be too chaotic for people to actually be able to use Bitcoin or whatnot in actual transactions here, because once again, a lot of people don't have it here. And so, let me see. It says, Raw says, can I park that electronic coin in my safe? Depending on which coin you're talking about, you might be able to park it on your actual cold storage wallet somewhere. But here, once again, I'm not here to defend that particular sector. I'm just mentioning that whether you believe in it or not, it's being used and it's going to be used. It's a part of the transition that get everybody excited about making some profits and gains as we're being ushered into that one world, single world currency. So that's what it is. And so it says dividends paid out in stable coins. I can see that coming slowly. Pablo, very good point. And so you technically can earn a lot more interest right now on your stable coins parked in some of these exchanges with all the risk that comes involved with that. But when you have these exchanges setting up different methods for people to somewhat earn dividends on parking their coins there, a lot of people are doing it. And it's like one of the things, you park funds in the bank knowing that you're not going to get anything substantial outside that will surpass the actual inflation. So you're actually losing by parking it in banks, or you can get some stable coins, park it at exchange, and you get and they put it to work for you, and you earn a little something. So that's one of the things where it's probably more for pro cryptocurrency lovers than your average person. And so we're entering into a world where heading into this next decade, unless you know exactly what you're doing and you have an exact strategy as to how you're going to trade these markets, because at this point, I'm of the firm mindset that there is no real such thing as investing anymore, because investing in the past typically implied that there was more of a even playing field for those people that were willing to take their capital and put it to work for them, because there's always risk, but there was very little risk due to monetary policy at that time being a little bit rewarding, to where interest rates were high enough to where you can park cash and make a little bit more than inflation, or you get some CDs, or you can take advantage of those money market accounts and earn more than you were willing, or you're probably going to lose. And you always had this reassurance that is FDIC approved or insured, which now that doesn't really mean much, because FDIC has nowhere near enough to cover any type of substantial losses in the banking sector. So it's one of the things where entering into this next decade here, it will pay and benefit you most if you formulated a strategy as to how you were going to speculate or trade directly for yourself, in my personal opinion. And so the idea of parking funds is letting it grow with compound interest. Unless you know what you're doing, you ain't getting no compound interest. You're getting compound inflation. And so, I'm one of them type of people where unless you know what you're going to gamble on or speculate on, your best bet, in my opinion, is to park it in some metals, let it sit there, and just let the metals get dusty, in worst case scenario, as opposed to put it out there and run the risk of losing it or having your purchasing power diminish because of this quantitative easing that's in full-fledged right now. And so Avocado Joy says, Mike, what about the Vietnamese DONG? And so it's one of the things when it comes to currencies, if you're trading the currency markets or anything of that nature, It always helps to know exactly what you're doing and what your strategy is. Because me personally, I lump all fiat currencies in the same boat. And unless you're actually a currency trader to where you know how to get in and get out and you're doing it as a strategy, you don't want to be left stuck with holding a foreign currency that is either parked in some account somewhere or in some brokerage firm waiting to be traded out, and you stuck in there and can't get it out or sell it because nobody wants to buy it. So Avocado Joy, great question. I don't trade currency, so I'm not aware of it. I know as I type in Vietnamese DONG, I know right now it's probably one of them things where it's favorable if you're a tourist to go over there and convert some of your dollars for the dongs to spend. But yet, as far as actually using those things to profit off of, that's specialized knowledge that very few people have. So if you have that and you're successful with it, get your profits. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm hearing that word more and more now. Take profit. Whatever you do, if you're trading, take profit. Take profit. So if that's what you do, make sure you do it well, because the risk all falls on you. But I'm curious to find out what exactly do you mean by the Vietnamese dong. That's something that is hot right now as far as traders, because I know a lot of people sitting on Iraqi dinars thinking that they're going to, reissue the currency and give it a new valuation comparison to the dollar, and people are going to become millionaires overnight. But it was one of the things where I imagine with that Iraqi dinar situation, there's more dinars within that country that the citizens are sitting on that's garbage, to where they're not going to let foreigners collect these currencies and all of a sudden become rich. Excuse me. But that's just my 2 cents there. Matt Forrest says, Mike, you ever watched Hidden Secrets of Money? Yes. Mike Maloney's Hidden Secrets of Money, by far, when it comes to the alternative media education, is probably the most well put together, animation, cartoons, period. So all, I think, 10 series will go down in history as the most educational tools that people can have access to. So if you don't know what Hidden Secrets of Money, just Google it, and you got millions of views. And no doubt it costs thousands upon thousands of dollars to pull that off. And so the whole point for him doing that is to educate people, and I think he did a good job of doing so. And the thing is, even though it has millions of views, it's circulated amongst the alternative media community to where I would imagine maybe a few thousand, maybe a million, have been awakened to the reality that their monetary system we're in now is one big fraud, to where they actually started acquiring metals beyond that point. But most people are still oblivious. So when you think about where majority of the population is at right now, there's most of them, the majority, are still asleep at the wheel, thinking that this current financial paradigm that was pre-Great Financial Crisis still exists, even though we've been in 10 years of emergency measure style policies, and it's about to get worse. And they have no clue. They've not changed their strategy. You mentioned the people, get some gold, get some silver, because it is money. They'll be like, can't spend that. What are you going to do with that? So a lot of people are still in the dark. And I'm excited for the fact that I'm anticipating more manipulation in the markets, to where it's always going to be favorable for those that are aware of the importance of metals and take advantage of it. So that's just my 2 cents there. And so it looks like we might have a call. Let's get on this call and see what we got here. Let me get this going. Oh, it looks like I lost a call. Give me a call back, and it should be good to go. I apologize for that. I missed that call. And so let's keep this party moving right along. And so on my end, it looks like for whatever reason, the channel is buffering. And so do you guys also see a buffering of the channel or what? So let me see here. It says, Mike, what do you think with a hyperinflate first dollar or yuan or euro? Great question. Low blood pressure. I think the euro is going to become an experimental currency, because when I saw last year that France talked about having their own digital currency, that lets me know that perhaps France plans on breaking apart from or taking matters into their own hands again. So I don't think the EU can make it through another systemic event like we had back in the Great Financial Crisis. So I see this next event probably rattling and shaking up some Euro nations, to where I can see the Euro becoming problematic, because Christine Lagarde is bent on doing more of the Mario Draghi policy, because that's all they can do. So they're going to continue to siphon wealth from as many people as they can until it doesn't work anymore. And so the Euro is one of the things where it's only 20 years old, technically. So I can see that going first. And then the yuan is going to implode from their currency just being predominantly held within side by the PBOC in the form of all that debt they've taken on. So I see the yuan probably going second. And then, of course, the dollar is going to be last because it's the world reserve currency. So I think it's going to be around in some form, not what we know now. So the words dollar, we still will have in our vocabulary. It just won't be Federal Reserve note style dollar, I don't think. So Debt and Regret says, do you invest in gold and silver mining stocks for speculation purposes? Do you invest in anything other than physical metals? Debt and Regret. Me personally. So as I mentioned the other day, with it come to mining stocks, I'm aware of a couple companies, but it's one of the things where, as I mentioned, all those intermediaries investing in mining stocks are more so geared towards people who are looking to profit off of the mining sector by acquiring shares in companies with the confidence that those companies will produce in an environment where gold and silver becomes favorable. But my thought process is that any mine in a troubled nation, especially like there's a lot of miners I've interviewed in Canada. And so if Canada, as a government, has given away, they sold all their gold, according to what their records show, do you think the government's going to sit around and be completely broke without nationalizing those mines? And so as of right now, there's a lot of development in Canada when it comes to the mining sector. The likelihood of the government sitting around broke and desperate and not deciding to tap into some of their natural resources is not likely. So all those mining companies will probably be nationalized of some kind if we get to a worst case scenario. Therefore, the amount of profit a lot of investors think they're going to receive will be confiscated by the government, and they'll probably pay out something, but they won't be given the full shebang like people think. So that right there puts more risk on the shareholders, because will you get it when it's time to collect? So it's one of the things where I personally, I don't directly invest in any of those. And so when it comes to my personal viewpoints on what's best to hold, it happens to be physical. And also I'm of the mindset, and this is my personal opinion, because majority of the planet operate on $5 a day, $5 a week, or whatever that crazy number is. Here in the developed world, majority of the population here don't even have 1,000 saved. So it doesn't take much weight or much metal to position yourself in the top 1% of metal holders on the planet. So it's one of the things where I personally like physical. There are blockchain-based corporations and projects that I do like. And so I'm more so interested in the development of my personal intellectual property as my primary investment. And when I say that, I'm investing in myself. So my self-education and my gifts is what I'm getting into on that extra Giftpreneur channel is my greatest investment, because regardless of what happens around me, the world is going to change. The question is, how will I take advantage of those opportunities? And so investing in my own personal intellectual property, meaning my brain power, I like to think that as time goes on, as I become more in tune, more aware, that I will be able to generate revenue no matter what the environment is. Therefore, I am my biggest asset to me personally. So that's, a little bit different probably what you're probably asking, but that's kind of where I'm going with the Giftpreneur. So that's where I want to encourage more people that your greatest investment is in your own intellectual property, which is in your own damn mind. So, you are your greatest investment. You can have all the gold and silver you want, but yet you can't base your whole world upon that, because if you lose it, then what? You know what I'm saying? Like if you had to get up and leave and you left with nothing, hopefully you're taking with you something up here that can position you in a much more favorable position wherever you go. So that's just my little 2 cents there. What that mean? So I got off a little tangent there, but it says, Mike, can you beatbox into that huge microphone? Low blood pressure. This is my original mic I've had all along. It's just been off to the side. But since no one can hear me the last couple of days due to whatever reasons, I'm like, might as well put it up right here. But, I'm not one to be able to, I don't spit bars in the form of music. But I'm hoping that the volume is right here, so it's good. So people, I think on a New Year's Eve live stream, they're saying, Mike, can't hear you. Can't hear the voice. I'm like, dude, the mic is right here. So one of them things where technology, I just got to get better. That's all. Put that on me, low blood pressure. I got to get better. That's all. Which is your own damn mind, Mike? Which is your own damn mind? the one between his ears. I'm not sure if that was a question for real or not. But with that being the case, let me get back to the subject at hand. Let's talk this cryptocurrency that's coming. So within the next 2 years, let's put that out there. The next 2 years, we're going to hear about some type of digital illusion movement here. I believe it's going to be stablecoin based. And I pray my message found you. Whicher works? I believe it did. Don't forget the super chat. Good point. Wait. So debt and regret. I appreciate that, my friend. It says, do you invest in gold and silver and buy stop? Do you invest in anything other than physical gold? So yeah, I believe I touched on that question. And so, like for me personally, I'm not one of those technical guys. I consider myself more of a realist, more of a practical guy that keep it simple. Like to me, none of this is rocket science. It's simply a matter of just being patient and then letting things around you unfold the way that they have to unfold. Like the whole Rethinking the Dollar concept, the initial idea of calling this channel Rethinking the Dollar was the fact that I'm like, well, I'm more than confident that in my lifetime, the Federal Reserve note will no longer be the reserve currency. So between now and that time, there's going to be a lot of nations rethinking the dollar. So this is before the whole terminology of de-dollarization was even in people's vocabulary like that. It wasn't out there like that. And then just realizing, based upon my experiences living abroad and looking back, it's like this country here that we live in now, we are living the highest standard of life that any nation has ever lived in history. Like we have more accessible to us now than any other race or creed or whatever, any group of individuals on this planet. We live better than everybody. And looking at how the rest of the world lives off of $1, $2 a day, I'm thinking like, man, that's not sustainable. Especially we don't produce nothing of true value that would keep us in this position. So at some point, there's going to come a day where this nation will be brought down to its knees in the form of just realizing where we truly fit in this big equation as far as living on this planet. That we've been sold this lie that we're exceptional, that we're the leaders of all this and leaders of all that. And I'm thinking like, depending on what country you go to, a lot of people don't feel that way about us. And so how have we been brainwashed into thinking that we're better than the rest of the world? And I think that in this next decade, we're going to find out more about where we really stand. And it's going to be a shock for a lot of people because most people who may not have a little bit of international experience, they probably believe that we're the most exceptional and that they're better than and we're greater than. But in actuality, Americans, at the end of the day, are the laziest. We're about the laziest sons of guns on this planet. Because here's how lazy we are as a nation, because we've been dumbed down. And it's not our fault. It's not your fault. It's not mine. It's just how the education system has lulled us to sleep. And we've been given that narrative of all you need is a degree and a climb the corporate ladder. You'll be successful. All that stuff we've been spun out to us. It's not how you generate generational wealth. You want to figure out how it's really done. You look at all the foreigners that come to the U.S. and they live off the bare minimum for 3, 4, 5 years while they're starting their business. And then next thing you know, they own a shop or something in every neighborhood that we live in. And they corner a market of some kind. And then they save up enough, send back for their family and friends, and bring them over and they multiply. And so like they're willing to do jobs that we're not willing to do here. And I'm talking about like the Asian population. In Detroit especially, there's a hair salon, a boutique shop, or weave place, or whatever, or a lot of corners here. And all the, if it's not a national food chain, if it's a small mom and pop's place, it's more than likely an Asian spot or a Thai food place. There's more Thai food places popping up in the Metro Detroit area. And I don't even know if it's real Thai food, but it just, hey, you know what I'm saying? So they grind. Americans are lazy in general. But I think we're going to come out of that. We're going to have to come out of that. If not, you're going to be left behind. I'm not sure where this is going, but I'm getting so far behind today. Forgive me for just ranting. What do we got here? So any thoughts, any last questions you guys want to talk about, let me know. But other than that, my biggest topic was to touch on the coin, the surveillance coin that's coming to a wallet, coming to your phone pretty soon in the form of a stable coin. It's going to be issued by, Goldman Sachs or JP Morgan watch Bank of America going to issue a stable coin pretty soon, because I noticed a lot of people in the country here use Bank of America, and I guarantee they're going to have something. And so we got one, which worker says, production for self will be the only means of survival in the end. Money is a chain attached to a false ideology. There is a reason you are charged for land you so-called own. Which works. Great stuff, man. I do agree. And so that's where I'm excited to get into what I consider to be more important subject matter. Like things we talk about here, it's a revolving door of the same situations. Just it changes from country to country, but ultimately there's an ongoing chain of events that has to occur, and it all boils down to our national currencies becoming our greatest liabilities. Therefore, everything that we've depended upon is based upon our national currencies will be challenged. Savings, retirements, your day-to-day means when it comes to inflation, going down to your grocery store and actually be able to get a cart of goods and services that is something within which you can afford, because your purchasing power, your currency is no longer any good. So all those things are just common things that everybody else around the world face, and multiple times throughout a generation. Just here in the U.S., we've gone 100 years of not having any true major issues apart from the inflation situation in the 70s that, I really wasn't around like that to know much about it, but I heard about it. So with that being the case, what about your shirt? Do you sell those on your website? Mark Carl Art. Yeah, so beneath this video here, in the little section there, you can buy the RTD Live Talk shirt. So it's just one of the things where it gives people opportunity to support the channel if they like. Some cool shirts. They're comfortable, but also at rethinkingthedollar.com/store, you can get you a shirt there for different colors or whatnot. So I always like ways of providing people opportunities to be a blessing to the channel. Says people always seek. Okay, forget gold, stock Viagra instead. Okay, Spirit, I see what how you get down. Fair enough. Whatever flows for you. Somebody will be willing to accept on the other end. Says you can get arrested in California for having a straw. I heard they're going paper friendly, so I came across some straws that were cardboard that got soggy real quick. China new coin will give retailer consumer direct contact to the central bank. Fifth Avenue fell. Very true. And ultimately, it's going to be another method for them to track your transaction. That's what it boils down to. This 2020 and beyond is going to be the push for more surveillance tools. Ganesh, good point. The dollar is a surveillance tool. Your social security number is a surveillance tool. Did you really think you were free? Of course not. We are in a big, one of my favorite movies. I'm going to dial off with this one, but The Truman Show. When I saw that movie years ago, and of course The Matrix and all those shows like that, that's Hollywood's way of giving us a sneak peek into what reality is. And so The Truman Show was a show based upon Jim Carrey, who grew up in a bubble of a world with cameras everywhere. Do you think that movie was just for sole purpose of entertainment? I don't think so. That type of surveillance is what we're all in right now. So there is no such thing as freedom the way that we probably had something similar to freedom prior to technology removing that, with cameras, phones everywhere. And what bothers me really bothers me is that how more people are voluntarily giving up their freedom or privacy when you buy smart gadgets. So if you got a smart TV, if you got a smart phone, if you got a doorbell with a camera on it because you don't trust people stealing your packages in front, like it's been proven that Ring is in Amazon and Facebook, all those companies coming out with those spy gadgets, they're not doing that because they want to provide you with a unique service. They're doing it because of the interconnected network that they're formulating that will have 24/7 access to everything you do. And even people who pass by your house, they can see. So it's one of the things where if every camera has a back door to it, that is a Truman Show. And we're living in that right now. And people are willingly paying to be surveyed 24/7. But with that being the case, I'm about to get ready to dial back. It's been 50 minutes of go back and forth. Hope you guys enjoyed this evening's live stream. As always, if there's any thoughts, any articles you come across, shoot me an email. Go to rethinkingthedollar.com/tab, admin at Rethinking the Dollar. Shoot me an article. I like to appreciate the people who send out articles and videos. I appreciate that because it gives me something to focus on for the day, especially if it's worthy of bringing to you guys via this live stream. And so Rich Worker says, I work in the IT field. Blockchain is the focus. Their so-called coins are just honeypots. So to see who bites and who tests, eventually all countries will agree on one currency. Yep, that is the ultimate goal. And that's where this is all heading. So between now and that time, one of my biggest concerns is not to focus on exactly what we are forced to use or have to use, but what who are you? What are you contributing to this bigger question? So I really want to focus on unique purpose. As I talked about earlier, your greatest asset is you yourself. So I think we spend too much time looking outside of us as opposed to looking inside of us and how we can contribute to other individuals. So with that being the case, that's all she wrote. Any thoughts, questions? Of course, like always, want to make sure I bring it to your attention. I got a couple more items coming out. And so I'm curious, for those that are heavily in the metal game, in the weight game, we got some options right here for you, the 5 ounce and the 1 ounce. Good way to get your weight up. You can never have too much weight because right now the weight is as cheap as it's going to get before they lose control of the manipulation and you wish you got more weight. So take advantage of that. With that being the case, that's all she wrote. Let's keep it moving. And then Patreon, of course, anybody want to support the channel on a monthly basis with a small contribution and get access to the Wise Guys Talks. And I got a couple things I'm working on where my goal is to be able to deliver as much value to you guys outside of the stuff that just comes free because we enjoy hanging out together. But that being the case, be blessed, be safe. And for those that are new to the channel, in the YouTube portion above this video, type in Giftpreneur, and the new YouTube channel should pop up. I did the first podcast yesterday. I'm going to be sharing a lot of my spiritual life as well as got some interviews coming on there. Eventually, I want to talk to some thought leaders outside of this financial mess type crap. I want to get to people who got solutions, who got fruit falling from the tree. So that being the case, that's all she wrote. I'm tired of ranting and rambling. It's been great hanging out. Leave a comment down below. If you've enjoyed this back and forth, don't be afraid to donate a thumbs up. Share this video so more people can find out what's going on. And let's connect again on another day. Be blessed, be safe, stay prayed up. Peace.